On to, in very good conversation on that debate. On to item 8E, Cascades Hydrology Study. I think Angela Klein is going to take this over, but I do see Mr. Bolt is on with us too, so I will turn it over to you two.
Thank you. Good morning. So first of all, I apologize. I was not able to make the meeting when Christopher and Amelia talked to you the first time. So I am Angela Klein. I am Christopher's Deputy Managing Director and the Director of Engineering for Jackson County Department of Transportation. I work very closely with Kyle on different projects in the county. And we're super excited to be presenting to you guys an update. We've been very busy this winter working on the water influence study for the Cascades. So we would like to show you our progress and what we've got planned for the next couple of months on this. We would love it if you guys could wait till the end to ask your questions. Amelia has worked very hard to try to do this update in less than 10 minutes for you, and then we'll answer all your questions. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I will share my screen and I'll do the 10 minutes. For those of you that I have not met yet or aren't familiar, I am Amelia McElhaney. I am the project engineer for this influence study. I have been honored to get to work with the Drain Commissioner in partnership with the Parks Department to perform this influence study. And so here I am today to just give you an update of where we are and where we plan to take this. Oh, first of all, can everyone hear me? I want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So this is just a quick snip of our schedule. We've been very busy this winter, as Angie said. This is steps to come and steps that we've been taken. And this, like I said, is just a small bit of what we have. It's a complicated study, but we want to make sure that we give careful consideration to each part. So just as a quick refresh, we are looking at the Cascades Lagoons, as well as the water course throughout the golf course at Sparks Foundation. This is just to help center us so that we understand where we are. We have received photos from the residence groups for Fix the Lagoon. The red markers show the pictures that we have shown, that we have received, that we will show on the next slide, signifying the extent of damage that these residents are seeing and kind of a cause for this study. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing walls pull away from floorboards as they're settling a foundation leading to wall cracks, and the like. So we know obviously there is a significant problem that needs to be addressed, and if there is any influence of the lagoons on these homes. So when I spoke to you all last, I mentioned that we would be doing a significant research. And so up to this point, we have gone through the existing well logs that are present at Sparks Park. We have obtained those 1-foot contours that we previously mentioned and have used those to find points of high accumulation along that flow path, have delineated a preliminary watershed that we'll be referencing for future analysis. And then we've also looked at the subsurface characteristics to kind of explain why these homes might be flooding. So I mentioned those existing well logs. This is what we are kind of looking at. These are installed by the park, and they just kind of confirm the water that was being pulled for the use of the Cascades, the splash pad, by the ice cream vendor, that they are coming from the subsurface aquifer and aren't being used to pull water from the lagoons themselves. Then looking at the surface geology around the area, I have marked where Douglas Street is, which is where the homes are that are experiencing the flooding. They are right on the edge of that drainage area of the Cascade Lagoons, which kind of makes them into that same hydric soil condition that we're seeing here, where they are poorly drained soils that capture water. So that adds on to the problems that they're seeing and explain why water is settling there, although it doesn't exactly explain why water is getting there. So that's what we were trying to answer through this study. So this purple mess is the foot contours that we had purchased to use for this project. Just for scale, I placed that marker showing where Douglas Street is. So if you can remember from that previous slide where that's shown up, but from this spaghetti mess of contours, we've created this watershed just based on flow paths generated using ArcGIS software, showing how water that is entering the lagoons is traveling throughout the surrounding subdivisions. And then from that, I was able to pull that that entire watershed area is about 685 acres, but the part that encompasses Douglas Street is about 30. There's different considerations to take based on this finding. It shows where water that is taking different flow paths from the adjacent subdivisions is affecting Douglas Street, and those that are flowing away from Douglas Street. So it does scale down any potential flooding issue if it is in fact coming from the subdivisions. So just going forward, that's another consideration that we want to make sure that we pay care and attention to. So then the next step is to take that model, run it through an additional software with various simulated storm events to make sure that we just understand the volume of water that is covering the area that we have to account for and make sure that we address in the future to prevent any future flooding. So then in progress, as I just mentioned, simulating these storm conditions, we need to contact the residents and have started contacting residents. We have been benefited from the information from the Fix the Lagoons resident group, the information that they have provided us. But in order to understand the scale of the problem, we are wanting to go out and make sure that we understand the full extent of residents that are being affected by any flooding, any sort of retained water in their properties, just so that we see, if it is just in this one sub-basin or if it extends beyond the watershed, which could indicate other issues than what we've previously identified. And to do so, we are installing monitoring walls around the area, small, minor, pretty much insignificant to the passerby, just walls so that we can understand where the water levels are throughout the area. Because, getting the reports back that there is water entering basements, we want to see where that groundwater level line is throughout the area to see which direction that water is coming from. And so that's where we're going to be locating, checking, and understanding that groundwater gradient so that we can map these flows and potentially understand where the problem is coming from. So this is just a map of throughout the entire Foundation Park where we are wanting to place wells. This is just a preliminary display, but it kind of captures what we're wanting to do. We're looking at somewhere around 24 to 30 wells to understand the gradient throughout the entire area. So we don't want to miss any potentially significant deviations from average water levels. And then a more synthesized view on the Douglas Street area. We have some wells that we can install pretty immediately, thankfully. Others we need to make sure that we are not influencing any sort of existing wetland conditions. So we are working with Eagle on that because we want to do our due diligence and take care of the water bodies that are around us, but also make sure that we are doing our service to the residents. So these are what the monitoring wells will be. This is just a quick schematic, although the specifics of each well will depend on the reported assumed groundwater levels in the area. This is generally what we're looking at and what we mean when we say monitoring wells. So as we've mentioned before, this is going to require a lot of different fixes. It requires many different solutions, but throughout our analysis, we're identifying potential points of vulnerability and those points that we need to address in order to make sure that our residents are safe, but then also maintain the quality and the characteristics of the Sparks Park and the lagoons that have been known and treasured for years. So we are working hard and we will continue to work hard. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions or comments?
Can we wander back 3 slides to where you had the kind of yellow cream?
Yellow cream.
Further,
Okay. This one?
right there.
Yes.
So this is showing at the moment where the water is discharging from the ground, or are we recharging the soil, or do we just have standing water on the surface in this area, this
Yes.
image?
Absolutely. All this is showing is pre-settlement wetlands. So Eagle, using their analysis from the National Conservation Resources and the Soil Survey, this is where they had mapped where they believed that before we had built on any of these areas where wetlands existed. And that doesn't necessitate that there is standing water in the area. More of it indicates that there are hydric soils, which means that there are typically saturated soils or low oxygenated soils in that region as a result. So it doesn't necessarily say that that is where water is. It's just an assumption of where water was, if that makes sense.
And it also is protected then by Eagle. So anything within those orange areas are areas that we need to work with Eagle to be permitted to do anything.
Where's Douglas Street on this map?
If you can see my cursor, Douglas Street is right here.
So I don't see your cursor.
You can see my cursor.
Oh, okay.
Off
No, I
right.
see it. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Douglas Street's right there. So right at the border.
Does that answer your question, Steve?
Well, it did kind of. I'd like to see more of the map northern